Isolde Wren stood behind the bridal pillars, while Wolf King Darian Vale married another woman beneath the crown he had once promised, would never touch his head without her name beside his. Nightwolf Coronation Chapel was full enough to smother grief. Peace envoys from Sornridge stood beneath silver banners. Priests waited beside the altar bowl, where royal wolves cut their palms and gave the wolf crown blood enough to recognize a reign. Isolde had not been invited. She had been summoned. That was worse. She could only stand where power placed her and pretend the old wound under her ribs was not opening with every vow spoken by another bride. Queen Bride Maelra Sorn knelt beside Darian in pale ash silk. Her beauty was careful, almost priestly. Nothing in her face looked cruel. That was why the chapel believed her when she lifted her eyes toward Isolde and said, softly enough to sound merciful, "Some past loyalties are hard to release. We honor Lady Wren's service by allowing her witness." Service. Isolde kept her hands folded. The scar beneath her left sleeve burned. Darian did not look at it. He stood at the altar in the black mantle of the Vale Kings, staring at the crown like he could survive anything except turning his head. Once, he had made a vow against her blood that no treaty had ever heard. Today, he spoke clearly for everyone else. "I take Maelra Sorn as queen, bride for peace between Vale and Sornridge." Isolde felt the broken oath tighten inside her blood. Not memory, not jealousy, something sealed too deep to be dismissed as either. Her fingers nearly closed over her sleeve, but she stopped them. She would not give Maelra the comfort of seeing pain perform. The high priest lifted the wolf crown from its iron cradle. It was not gold. Vale kings had never trusted soft metals. The crown was dark iron, old wolf bone, and 7 moonstones set like watching eyes. It did not choose brides. It did not bless love. It recorded sovereign blood, crown oaths, treaty bonds, and fractures that could weaken a reign if left unpaid. A king could lie to a chapel. His crown could not afford to. The priest faced Darian. "Name any oath that binds your blood before the crown receives you." Darian's jaw shifted. Isolde saw it because she had once known the language of his restraint better than her own prayers. Maelra saw it too, and placed her hand gently over his. "Peace requires a clean answer," she whispered. Darian looked at the crown. "No prior oath stands against this reign," he said. The scar beneath Isolde's sleeve opened. No blood fell where the court could see. The wound had learned discretion years ago. It bled inward first, hot and silent, because some promises wounded most when the world insisted they had never been spoken. A woman behind Isolde murmured, "She should not have come." Isolde did not turn. Maelra did. "Let her stay," the Queen Bride said. "If the past is innocent, it will survive being present." The words were kind enough to be poisonous. Darian finally looked at Isolde. Only once. That was all it took for the old ache to remember, his hand wrapped around hers in the chapel crypt, his voice rough with fear and love, saying a vow he had never dared put into public ink. Now, he looked away first. "Proceed," he said. The priest brought the blade. Darian opened his palm over the altar bowl. His blood fell black-red into moonlit silver. The wolf crown cut him before he touched it. Not the blade, not the priest, the crown itself. One iron point bent inward like a fang and sliced across Darian's palm so sharply that the chapel heard skin break. Blood struck the altar stone. The moonstones went dark. A growl moved through the chapel floor. Darian did not step back. Pride held him still even as blood ran down his wrist. Again, the priest's face had gone pale. "Your Majesty." Again, Maelra rose, calm as winter law. "The crown is old. Coronation relics resist new peace when the kingdom has known war too long." Isolde looked at the dark moonstones. "Then ask what it resisted." Maelra turned toward her with soft sorrow. "Lady Wren, Not every wound at a wedding is prophecy. No, Isolde said. Some are receipts. Darian's eyes flashed to hers. She gave him nothing back. The priest examined the crown's inner rim. Old moon script had surfaced along the iron. Read it, Darian ordered. Maelra placed a hand on his injured wrist. A failed first offering does not require public interpretation. Isolde's scar burned harder. Darian stared at Maelra's hand, then at the crown. Read it. The priest swallowed. Blood refused, he said. Oath fracture unresolved. Maelra's voice stayed gentle. Many kings inherit old fractures from their fathers. The crown answered by cutting Darian again. This time, no one touched it. A second line opened across his palm, crossing the first like a broken vow mark. The moon script deepened. The priest's voice trembled. Fracture not inherited. Darian looked toward the chapel floor before he looked anywhere else. Isolde did not help him find where the fracture led. The wolf crown had not accepted his blood. It had found an oath fracture his answer had left unnamed. Darian did not ask Isolde what the fracture meant. He ordered the crown oath registry opened. That was the first mercy he did not give her, and the first wound he did not ask her to explain. The priest set the wolf crown back into its iron cradle, while Darian's blood dripped onto the altar stone in 2 crossed lines. No one moved to bind his hand. No one dared touch a king before the crown had decided whether his blood could be received. Maelra remained beside him, pale and composed. Your Majesty, classification should occur privately. The chapel has already heard enough to unsettle both kingdoms. The chapel heard my answer, Darian said. It will hear what answered back. Isolde kept her gaze on the registry cabinet, not on his bleeding hand, not on the bride standing too near him. If she looked at either for too long, the old vow inside her blood would mistake attention for weakness. The high priest brought a narrow book, bound in wolf hide and black silver. Its lock opened only when Darian placed his injured palm above it. The book refused to open. A thin growl pressed through the floor again. Maelra lifted her voice before fear could shape itself. An unnamed fracture is not a bride. It is a danger to be classified before it is dramatized. A few elders nodded. Isolde did not fight the room. She had learned that a woman made into a wound could not win by bleeding louder. Then read what kind of oath fractured, she said. Darian looked at her then. The chapel watched that look, hungry for proof of scandal. Isolde gave them none. Her face stayed still. The priest tried the lock again, this time touching the crown's inner rim to the book spine. The 7 moonstones remained dark, but 1 line of moon script slid across the cover. Registry division required, the priest read. Treaty bond column, Maelra said at once. The crown was offered during a peace marriage. Start where politics touched blood. Darian nodded once. Treaty bond column. The priest turned to the treaty register. Names of old houses, border repairs, ransom exchanges, and peace marriages glimmered in pale ink. Maelra's family seal appeared beside the new Saunridge Pact. No active fracture under treaty bond, the priest said. Maelra's calm did not crack. Then inherited bloodline. The crown already knows the Vale line has carried old violence. Darian's jaw tightened. Isolde knew that wound too. His father had left the kingdom full of graves and hungry wolves. Darian had inherited a throne that smelled of iron and smoke. But inheritance was not the same as innocence. Inherited fracture column, Darian ordered. The priest turned the page. Old Vale kings appeared in stern rows. Some lines were marked with battlefield debt, broken succession, or blood ransom unpaid. Darian's name glimmered at the newest entry. The priest leaned closer. No inherited fracture, attached to current refusal. A louder murmur spread through the chapel. Maelra raised one hand. Then the registry is incomplete. Coronation disturbances are common when old books meet new peace. We should not let a relic's missing category humiliate the king, Isolde said. Missing categories do not cut twice. Darian's eyes moved to his hand. The 2 lines of blood had not closed. Next category, he said. The priest hesitated. Sovereign oath. Maelra turned toward him. That category is for oaths that affect crown capacity. It cannot be read before foreign envoys without council seal. The crown refused me before foreign envoys, Darian said. Isolde heard the cold control in him. Not regret. Not yet. But the first crack in the certainty that had carried him to another woman's altar. The priest opened the sovereign oath section. The registry pages were nearly blank, near Darian's reign. He had taken command after his father's death, before full coronation, under emergency war right. Most royal oaths waited for today's ceremony. Then, one margin darkened. Entry, irregularity, the priest whispered. Darian stepped closer. Read it. Maelra's hand tightened around her ash silk sleeve. Irregular does not mean valid. It may be an unfiled chapel note, an old witness error, or a grief mark from wartime. Isolde's scar burned beneath her sleeve. She did not touch it. The priest read slowly. Sovereign oath category opened in the chapel crypt. Date sealed during emergency accession. Witness bloodline present. The chapel went silent in a different way. Not scandal yet. Recognition of a locked door. Darian's face lost color by degrees. Witness named. The priest followed the margin down, his brow furrowed. Witness line incomplete. Maelra exhaled as if relieved. Then it has no standing. Isolde looked at the book. Incomplete is not absent. Darian's gaze struck hers. This time, she did not look away. He said lower. Did you know this would happen? She answered with the truth he had earned. I knew a blood oath does not disappear because a king leaves it unnamed. The crown gave one quiet sound from its cradle. Not a howl, not a blessing, a record, answering its proper column. The fracture was not treaty-born. It was entered under crown oath witness blood. Darian did not ask whose blood had witnessed him. He asked why the witness line was incomplete. The difference mattered. One question would have turned Isolde Wren into a spectacle. The other turned the chapel back toward its own records. The crown oath registry lay open beneath the dark moonstones, while Darian's crossed palm bled onto a white cloth no priest had dared tie. Maelra Sorn stood at his right hand, graceful, calm, still close enough for the court to remember she had just been named Queen Bride. A witness without a name cannot be turned into a bride by pain, Maelra said. The registry has given us a category, not a claimant. Isolde kept her hands folded. The scar beneath her sleeve throbbed once, deep and old. Then read the omission note, she said. The high priest looked at Darian. Darian did not look at Isolde. Read it. The priest bent over the margin where the witness line ended, in a thin break of moon ink. Omission note attached under emergency accession procedure. A council elder leaned forward. That procedure was used after King Ormond died at the Northern Ford. Darian's face hardened at his father's name. I know when it was used. Maelra gave a soft nod, as though honoring the dead. Emergency rules are imperfect by nature. A missing witness may be a wartime filing error, not a living wound. Filing errors do not make crowns refuse blood, Isolde said. A murmur stirred the chapel. Maelra turned that murmur with ease. Lady Wren speaks with feeling. I ask the chapel to remember that feeling is not registry law. Isolde did not answer her. She looked only at the book. Darian's voice came low. What does the procedure say about omitted names? The priest opened a second strip folded into the spine. Its edges had gone brown with crypt damp. Under emergency accession, a witness name may be sealed from public crown record if disclosure endangers provisional reign, treaty stability, or royal survival. Maelra's expression warmed with relief that looked almost kind. There, Sealed for safety. Not erased, perhaps, but not public. We should not violate wartime protection for wedding fever, Isolde said. Read the next line. The priest did not move. Darian's eyes cut to him. Next line. The priest swallowed. The oath remains binding, while the witness remains burdened. The words entered the chapel like cold water poured under a door. Darian went very still. Maelra spoke before anyone else could attach the sentence to flesh. Burdened can mean many things. Witnesses often carry memory obligations, secrecy duties, court silence. Isolde's mouth tightened. Court silence is always easier when someone else pays for it. Darian finally looked at her sleeve. Not long. Long enough. She let him see nothing but cloth. Burden described? He asked. The priest found another mark. Blood strain transferred until coronation, completion, or lawful release. An old wolf matron hissed under her breath. Transferred to whom? Maelra's hand slid back to Darian's wrist, careful around the cuts. The witness is unnamed. No kingdom can punish itself over an unnamed person. No kingdom should crown itself over one, Isolde said. Darian's jaw flexed. Darian's breathing changed when the priest said blood strain. Isolde did not mistake recognition for repair. Seal authority, Darian said. The priest read the bottom of the omission note. Priest seal present. Wartime council seal present. Royal hand absent. Maelra turned toward that line, then softened herself before the chapel could call it fear. Of course, royal hand was absent. He was newly raised, half the kingdom burning. Emergency officials acted for preservation. Darian looked at the note. If my hand was absent, who requested sealing? Maelra said. Your Majesty. Names in emergency petitions may expose surviving families. Isolde's scar burned harder, but her voice stayed steady. Then read the petition class, not the name. Darian's gaze held on her for one breath too long. Petition class, he ordered. The priest read, Crown capacity preservation. No one spoke. The chapel understood enough to stop whispering. Maelra recovered first. Preservation protected this kingdom. If a witness gave blood under war law, then the witness served the crown as many did. Isolde looked at her. Service is what powerful people call sacrifice when they do not want to name who bled. The wolf crown remained in its cradle. It did not flare. It did not point. It waited beside the open registry while law described what the chapel had kept ceremonial. Darian turned toward the priest. Can a coronation proceed while the witness remains burdened? The priest's face went gray. Maelra's voice lowered. Careful. That answer may decide whether peace survives tonight. Darian did not move. Answer, the priest read from the final clause. No full crown acceptance may occur, while burdened witness blood remains sealed and unaddressed. The chapel broke into frightened whispers. Darian looked at the unfinished witness line. Isolde looked at the floor. She would not give him her pain as a map. The witness name had not been erased. It had been sealed under emergency accession. The hidden witness name remained closed. Darian turned the page beneath it instead. Who asked for the sealing? He said. The chapel had expected a demand for identity. It had braced for scandal, for Isolde Wren's face to become a target. Instead, Darian's question moved around the blank line and found the petition that had kept it blank. Maelra Sorn inclined her head as if he had chosen wisely. A council may protect a king without asking him to carry every wartime choice in his own hand. Isolde heard the kindness in it. She also heard the cage. Then read who the protection protected, she said. Darian kept his gaze on the petition. Protection clause. The high priest unfolded the emergency petition from beneath the omission note. Its wax had been flattened by years inside the registry spine. A wartime council stamp crossed the top in dull red. Petition class, the priest read. Crown capacity preservation. Already read. Maelra said gently. It means the kingdom was preserved. Reason code, Isolde said. A council elder frowned. Lady Wren has no standing to direct crown petitions. No, Isolde answered. But the crown has no standing to accept blood while the petition remains unread. The wolf crown stayed in its cradle, silent and dark. That silence helped her more than flame would have. It forced the chapel to hear records without mistaking spectacle for proof. Darian's voice cut through the murmurs. Reason code. The priest read, Provisional king vulnerable to accession fracture during active border war. Maelra turned toward the Sawnridge envoys. There. This was a war measure. The petition guarded a young king from collapse when the north was burning. Darian's jaw tightened at young king. Isolde had seen that young king once. Blood on his collar. Grief held behind command. No one said that. Witness protection clause, she said. Maelra's eyes moved to her. You presume such a clause exists. I presume the petition knows whether the witness mattered. The priest lowered his gaze. Witness protection clause. None entered. A small sound left the chapel benches. Not outrage yet. Calculation. Darian's bleeding hand curled. No protection for the witness? None entered. The priest repeated. Maelra's voice remained smooth. Emergency petitions are not consolation papers. Their purpose was the crown's survival. That does not mean cruelty. It means priority. Isolde looked at her. Priority is how powerful people spell abandonment. Darian turned a fraction toward her. Only a fraction. She did not reward it. Royal survival clause, he said. The priest read, Sealing approved to prevent crown instability, sovereign blood rejection, treaty collapse, and battlefield command dispute. Maelra nodded. All legitimate fears. Without Darian accepted as provisional king, the Vale Wolves would have torn themselves into claimant packs. Treaty stability clause, Darian said. The priest followed the ink. Protection of pending border negotiations, ransom exchanges, and future Sawnridge settlement. Darian looked at the bottom seal. Petitioner class. Maelra stepped in. Classes do not always name guilt. Wartime clerks filed by office, not so. Petitioner class, he repeated. The priest read. Joint Wartime Council request. Which office carried it? Isolde asked. One of the elders stood. This exceeds the dignity of a coronation rite. Isolde finally turned to load. The witness carried the burden long enough to preserve your dignity. Silence struck harder than a shout. Darian looked at the elder. Office. The priest's mouth tightened. Council, peace delegation, and royal succession chamber. Maelra answered before the words could settle. Those were the two pillars of survival. Peace and succession. If they acted together, they acted to keep the kingdom alive. Alive for whom? Isolde asked. Maelra's smile was sad. For everyone standing in this chapel, including you. Isolde's scar burned beneath cloth, but she kept her hand still. Then, why does everyone stand named except the witness? Darian's eyes closed once. Not apology. Impact. Burden review, he said. Who was notified? The priest read the next line. Notification waived under royal survival privilege. Witness notified? Darian asked. No notice entered. Maelra placed one hand against her own chest. If the witness was unnamed to the public record, notification may have endangered them. Isolde's voice stayed even. Protection, without notice, is only silence, wearing armor. The chapel did not murmur this time. It listened. Darian looked at the petition, then at the cut across his palm. Can the burden be lawful if the witness was not protected and not notified? The priest did not answer quickly. Maelra's voice cooled. Careful, Your Majesty. If you unravel emergency law at the altar, every choice that preserved you becomes suspect. Darian faced the priest. Answer. The priest read the marginal clause. Emergency sealing may preserve crown capacity, but failure to enter witness protection requires later redress before full coronation acceptance. The wolf crown gave no glow, nor mercy, only the dark weight of a record that had waited years to be read in the right order. Darian looked at the blank witness line. Isolde looked at the petition that had named survival and left the witness unnamed. The sealing had not been filed to protect the witness. It had been filed to preserve the king. The redress clause changed the air in Nightwolf Coronation Chapel. Until that moment, the hidden witness had been treated as a blank in an old margin. Now the registry had given that blank a right the court could not politely step around, a right to be addressed before the crown accepted blood. The high priest kept one hand on the open petition. "There is a burden release form attached to the clause. Read it," Darian said. Maelra Sorn's voice came smooth beside him. "Redress does not require exposure. A crown may repair a burden without turning a woman into a public claim." Several elders murmured approval. It was a reasonable sentence. That was what made it dangerous. From the side of the bridal pillars, Isolde Wren kept her sleeve still over the burning scar. "Then read whether release can happen without the witness." The murmurs faded. A priest turned the next folded page. "Burden release procedure. Step 1. Witness notification." Maelra inclined her head. "Notification can be made through sealed channels." "Name channels?" Isolde asked. The priest read the line below. "Notification must be addressed to the living witness or lawful witness heir." One of the Sornridge envoys whispered something sharp. The chapel doors did not open, but the room began to feel less like a wedding and more like a border negotiation with knives under silk. Darian looked at the blank witness line. "Was notification ever entered?" "No notice entered," the priest said. "That was already read," Maelra replied gently. "The question now is how to cure the omission without harming the realm." "The realm was protected by the omission," Isolde said. "The witness was harmed by it." No one answered her too quickly. Blood still marked the king's palm. The crown remained dark in its cradle, waiting without pity. "Step 2, he ordered. The priest swallowed. "Burden acknowledgement by crown claimant." Maelra turned slightly. "That can be fulfilled now. His Majesty may acknowledge that a wartime burden exists without naming or elevating its holder." Darian's gaze moved to the chapel floor where his blood had fallen. "Words required," the priest read. "The claimant must enter public record that crown capacity was preserved through sealed witness burden." The silence that followed had weight. Maelra's calm tightened by a thread. "Public record will embolden enemies. Sornridge came for peace, not for confession of crown weakness." A cut opened in Darian's voice, though his face remained controlled. "Sornridge came to marry a king the crown refuses to receive." Isolde heard the cost in that sentence. She did not call it courage. Not yet. A man, admitting damage after hiding behind it for years, did not become clean because he spoke where others could hear. The priest waited. Darian lifted his bleeding hand. "Enter it." Crown capacity was preserved through sealed witness burden. Maelra's eyes sharpened, but her mouth stayed gentle. "You give the chapel a weapon against yourself." "No," Isolde said softly. "The weapon was made when the witness was left unnamed." He did not look at her then. Perhaps he knew he had no right to seek comfort from the woman whose pain had become procedure. "Step 3, he said. The priest turned another page. "Crown Assumption Clause. Upon acknowledgement, the claimant may assume the burden only if the witness gives living consent." An old lord frowned. "The king can take it back, not without consent," the priest read. Maelra moved at once. "Consent can be presumed when the witness served crown preservation. Emergency law rests on service." Isolde's fingers tightened once, then loosened. Presumed consent is what powerful rooms call silence, when silence benefits them. The dark iron crown gave a low, metallic sound. Not a flare, not a choice. A registry latch released near the bottom of the cradle. The priest bent toward it. Addendum. Darian's shoulders went still. Read, living consent required. Consent may not be presumed from prior burden. Wartime silence, sealed identity, royal survival, treaty stability, or absence of complaint. Maelra's face stayed composed. Only her hand withdrew from the king's wrist. Isolde saw it. So did he. For the first time that night, the space between bride and king became visible. Can the witness be compelled? A council elder asked. The priest searched the addendum. No. Can the council consent on the witness's behalf? No. Can the king? The priest looked at Darian before answering. No. The chapel turned its fear toward the blank line. Darian's voice came lower. Until living consent is entered, what happens to the coronation? No full acceptance, the priest said. No crown sealing. No sovereign blood completion. Maelra's tone cooled into polished warning. Then every enemy beyond these walls will know Vale stands unsealed. Darian closed his bleeding hand. Then Vale will stand truthfully unsealed. Isolde felt the words strike the old wound, but she did not let them dress themselves as repair. Truth spoken late still arrived late. The redress form lay open beneath the dark crown. The burden could not be released by king, priest, or council. It required the witness's living consent. Living consent made the wedding altar useless for a moment. No blade, crown, priest, or council seal could move the burden without the unnamed witness willing it. That was when Maelra Sorn stopped speaking like a bride and began speaking like a treaty. Then the realm must be secured while redress is pursued, she said. A crown cannot remain unfinished without a governing instrument. The Sornridge envoys straightened beneath their silver banners. Isolde Wren noticed that before the elders did, so did the king. Which instrument? Darian asked. The queen bride lowered her lashes in careful restraint. The peace treaty already accounts for coronation delay. A cold line moved through the chapel. The priest looked toward the treaty register. The Sornridge settlement? Read the delay provision, Isolde said. An elder snapped. Lady Wren cannot command treaty reading. No, she answered, but everyone here is standing under a crown that cannot close. The treaty seems eager to do the work for it. Darian's bleeding hand opened once over the altar cloth. Read the delay provision. The priest brought the treaty volume beside the crown oath registry. Its pages smelled of vellum, ash, ink, and fresh wax. Unlike the old petition, this document was new enough to look innocent. Maelra kept her voice calm. Delay provisions are common. They prevent panic. Then they should not fear daylight, Isolde said. The priest read, If full coronation acceptance is delayed by oath fracture, inherited debt, witness burden, or sovereign blood irregularity, interim authority shall be vested in the queen bride's peace household until crown completion. The chapel went silent, not because the words were unclear, because they were too clear. Darian turned toward the treaty table. Peace household? Maelra answered before the priest could. My family's council, temporary governance. It prevents border war while your crown is made whole. Isolde looked at the phrase. Then read what powers are temporary. The priest followed the next column. Interim authority includes levy review, border command, prison release, marriage ratification, wolf house appointments, and crown guard oversight. A low growl ran through the Vale elders. Maelra lifted a hand. Oversight is not seizure. Sornridge would hold authority only until the crown is sealed. By a process requiring a witness, no one named, notified, or protected, Isolde said. Her words struck the treaty harder than accusation would have. Darian's face stayed controlled, but the cut in his palm opened again. Who wrote this provision? Joint peace drafting, the priest read. Sornridge Legal House and Council Peace Delegation, the same office that had carried the old sealing petition. The room understood the connection slowly, like frost reaching bone. Maelra spoke into that understanding. Peace requires continuity. Our houses negotiated around your emergency history because Vale needed a bride who could steady the throne. Isolde looked at the ash silk gown, the perfect veil, the tender hand no longer resting on the king's wrist. You did not marry into a crown. You wrote a path around one. The queen bride's eyes cooled. And you would prefer collapse, because your private sorrow dislikes policy. No, Isolde said. I dislike policy that profits from a wound it refuses to name. Darian's gaze found her across the registry table. Something old pulled between them, painful and unfinished. She did not soften. The old vow inside her blood had protected him once. It would not comfort him now. Read the completion condition, he said. The priest turned the page. Crown completion occurs upon full blood acceptance, lawful burden release, or transfer of governing authority after 7 nights of unresolved fracture. Transfer to whom? Asked a Vale Lord. The priest's voice thinned. Queen Bride's peace household. Maelra's expression remained composed. 7 nights prevents indefinite crisis. It is sound governance. Sound for Sornridge, Isolde said. And for Vale, if its king cannot be crowned. Darian looked at her then, not as husband, not as king sealed by iron, but as a man watching the shape of his own mistake grow teeth. Still, he did not apologize. Instead, he did something more useful. Enter royal objection, he said. The treaty contains interim transfer provisions activated by the same witness burden the petition failed to protect. No transfer authority may be exercised until the burden redress record is completed and reviewed before the chapel. The Sornridge envoys erupted at once. Maelra stayed still. That was worse. You risk peace for an unnamed witness, she said. His answer came without warmth. Peace that requires an unnamed burden is not peace. It is custody. Isolde felt the sentence land near her scar. She let it remain outside her. The wolf crown stayed dark, but the treaty page shifted beneath moonlight. A hidden margin line surfaced below the 7-night clause. The transfer did not require the crown to be fully repaired. It required the burden to remain unresolved. 7 nights had sounded like grace until the hidden margin turned it into a weapon. The chapel no longer felt like a wedding. It felt like a room full of people calculating how long a woman could remain unnamed before a kingdom decided her silence was inconvenient. Maelra folded her hands over the ash silk at her waist. Then we must secure the redress process at once. If an unknown witness controls crown completion, the court cannot allow that witness to vanish into rumor. Secure, Isolde Wren said, is often the first polite word before a door is locked. Several guards glanced toward the chapel exits. At the altar, Darian Vale saw them move. No one closes the doors. Maelra turned with measured patience. A witness burden threatens the crown, the treaty, and the border. Containment is not cruelty, it is governance. Read whether redress allows containment, Isolde said. The high priest searched the release form, grateful for ink, because ink was safer than choosing sides. Redress summons may request the living witness's presence. May request, she said, not seize. The priest lowered his eyes. No compulsion clause entered. A ripple passed through the benches. The Vale elders did not like that. The Sornridge envoys liked it less. Maelra's voice softened for the room. If the witness is loyal, she will step forward. If she refuses, then all of Vale suffers for one hidden person's pride. Isolde felt Lee's scar beneath her sleeve pulse once. She kept her hands visible. Pride is not the same as consent, she said. Darian's bleeding hand curled against the altar cloth. No woman in this chapel will be searched, named, or held to solve what emergency law failed to protect. The words struck hard because they were useful. They were not enough. Isolde did not look at him as though usefulness could become absolution. Maelra's gaze moved across the bridal pillars, the witness benches, the court ladies whose wrists were suddenly hidden in sleeves. Then your majesty risks the throne for a person who will not even claim the burden. The burden was claimed from her first, Isolde said. The queen bride's eyes settled on her, calm, careful, almost kind. Lady Wren, you speak as if every old wound in this chapel has your handwriting on it. A lesser woman might have denied it too quickly. Isolde had survived too many rooms by refusing the bait inside beautiful sentences. I speak as a woman summoned to decorate a decision that erased her, she said. That service is finished. The chapel shifted. Darian looked up. You are leaving? She was summoned as witness to the marriage, Maelra said before Isolde answered. If she leaves now, she makes her grievance part of the rite. Isolde turned from the altar. The rite made my silence part of itself before I walked in. A guard stepped into the aisle. Darian's voice cut through the chapel. Let her pass. The guard froze. For one breath, old memory moved between king and woman. A crypt beneath winter stone, a palm cut open, a vow made when war had taken every witness but blood. Neither of them touched it. Touching memory in public would only give the court another way to own it. Isolde walked down the center aisle beneath moonbone arches and watching wolf banners. No one spat. No one laughed. That made it worse. Pity held its tongue and still managed to follow her. Behind her, Maelra spoke clearly enough for every bench. Remember this moment. Peace has been offered a path, and Lady Wren chooses departure. Isolde stopped near the outer ring of the chapel, where coronation law ended and winter air slipped under the doors. She turned back. No, she said. Peace was offered a hidden wound and told to call it clean. I choose not to bleed quietly for its convenience. The scar under her sleeve burned so sharply that her fingers trembled once. Darian saw. So did Maelra. The crown remained in its cradle. It did not turn. It did not point. It did not speak her name. Instead, the redress form tightened under the priest's hands, and a line of moon script appeared below the consent clause. Witness absent from redress chamber. The chapel inhaled as one body. Maelra did not smile. She was too disciplined for that. The witness remains unidentified, she said. The treaty delay provision must govern until redress can be completed. The priest looked at Darian with dread already forming. Above the treaty volume, one of 7 small moon marks ignited beside the Sornridge seal. The first night had begun. Isolde stood beyond the inner ring, with her hand over the hidden wound at last. The court had not learned her name. It had learned what happened when the unnamed witness walked away. The first moon mark burned beside the Sornridge seal, long enough for everyone to understand the trap. 7 nights did not begin when peace failed. It began when the unnamed witness left the ring. At the outer doors, Isolde Wren stood with one hand over her sleeve and the other on the iron latch. Winter pressed through the seam, cold enough to make candle flames lean. Close the record, Maelra said, still calm. The witness has withdrawn. The delay provision governs until redress can resume. No, Darian Vale said. The word was not loud. It did not need to be. Every wolf in the chapel heard the king inside it before the crown had accepted him. The queen bride turned with measured sorrow. You cannot govern by refusal. If the witness will not enter consent, the treaty provides continuity. The treaty profits from her absence, he said. It will not govern the absence it helped create. A stir crossed the Sornridge envoys. From the doorway, Isolde did not turn back quickly. She had learned to distrust any rescue that arrived only after the wound became useful to a throne. "Enter royal suspension," the king ordered. "No delay provision, transfer authority, or interim household power may activate while redress remains obstructed by an unnotified witness." An elder stood. "Your Majesty, suspension of a peace clause requires cause." "Then read the drafting record," Isolde said from the door. The hall shifted toward her voice. She kept her face toward the winter seam. "If the clause is lawful, it will survive being read." The high priest looked to the altar. "Drafting record," Darian said. Maelra's fingers folded into the ash silk. "Peace drafts contain sensitive concessions. Public reading may endanger both houses. Private wounds have done enough public work tonight," he answered. That line did not ask Isolde for forgiveness. "Good." The treaty clerk brought a flat blue ledger from the Sawnridge table. Its cover bore 2 seals, Sawn legal wax and Vale Council black. The pages opened to dates, witnesses, and clause transfers. "Delay provision origin," the king said. The clerk read carefully. "Initial peace draft, no 7-night transfer clause." The chapel sharpened. Maelra inclined her head. "Early drafts are incomplete by design. Second draft," he said. "No 7-night transfer clause. Final draft." The clerk hesitated. A vein of fear ran through the room without sound. "Final draft includes 7-night transfer clause. Added by whose office?" Isolde asked. The clerk looked down. "Sawnridge Legal House," Maelra answered at once. "At council request. Vale feared instability. Sawnridge supplied the language." "Vale countersignature?" Darian asked. The clerk searched the margin. "Council peace delegation mark present." "Royal succession chamber?" he asked. "Absent." The same chamber that had carried the old sealing petition was missing from the clause that profited from that sealing. Maelra's voice stayed smooth. "Absence does not mean forgery. Authority scope," Isolde said. No one rebuked her this time. The clerk unfolded the authority slip. "Council peace delegation may negotiate borders, ransom terms, marriage schedule, and trade road restitution. No authority granted over crown transfer, interim sovereignty, or witness burden redress." A low growl rose from the Vale benches. The wolf crown remained dark in its cradle, but the treaty ledger's black wax softened along one edge, as if old heat had found a lie without needing to burn it open. "Who delivered the final rider?" the king asked. Maelra looked toward the envoys. "Riders pass through many hands." "Delivery line," he said. The clerk swallowed. "Delivered under Queen Bride household seal." For the first time, the chapel looked at Maelra not as peace, but as procedure. She did not crumble. "My household delivered what both sides needed. Without interim governance, Vale would have become a wounded animal at its own altar." Isolde turned then. Slowly. "You did not bring bandages," she said. "You brought a leash and called it peace." The words landed with enough force to move the court back from her. Blood marked Darian's palm. The crown still refused him. The bride still stood beside the altar, but the aisle between king and witness no longer belonged to silence. He faced the priest. "Enter the rider as disputed. Open the original treaty archive. No Sawnridge household authority may attach to the crown while dispute remains." Maelra's voice cooled. "You are choosing an unnamed witness over a kingdom." "No," he said. "I am choosing to stop using an unnamed witness as the kingdom." Isolde's fingers tightened on the latch. The redress form beneath the crown shifted, and a sealed archive line appeared below the rider entry. Original treaty archive may be opened only by crown claimant and burdened witness together. The chapel turned toward the outer doors. The king did not call her back. He simply stepped away from Maelra and left the space beside the archive empty. For the first time that night, Repair did not ask Isolde to return. It made room for her choice. The empty space beside the treaty archive became more dangerous than any command. No guard filled it. No priest hurried to explain it away. The king stood with his wounded hand lowered, and for once the chapel had to wait for a woman who had been summoned only to witness her own erasure. At the outer doors, winter pressed through the iron latch. Maelra's voice crossed the aisle, calm and almost pitying. The archive requires a burdened witness. Until that witness is identified, no one may open it. We cannot let grief imitate law. Isolde Wren turned from the door. Then let law tell the difference. The queen bride lowered her eyes. Any woman could step forward now and claim importance. Pain is not proof. No, Isolde said, but consent is. A tremor passed through the priests. The redress form still lay beneath the wolf crown. Darian Vale looked at the high priest. What does the archive require? The priest read the newly revealed line. Crown claimant's blood and living witness consent, offered together. The witness must not be compelled, confined, threatened, or named by another before consent. Maelra nodded as if that helped her. Then this public room cannot serve. Any choice made here is tainted by pressure. She was summoned here by my marriage, the king said. If pressure taints consent, it began before she spoke. The words struck the chapel hard. Isolde did not take them into herself. He had named part of the wrong. He had not repaired the years it had fed on. Clear the aisle, he ordered. A few guards moved back. Elders shifted. Sawnridge envoys whispered. No one touched the woman at the doors. Maelra's mouth curved with sorrow. You are building a throne on a wounded woman's performance. The answer came from the threshold. No, I am ending one. Slowly, Isolde walked back beneath the moonbone arches. She did not go to Darian's side. She stopped across the archive table, with the crown between them and the past under both their hands. The priest held out a silver needle. She looked at it, then at the king. You do not get to open what I carried unless the record admits that I carried it. His face tightened. I will not touch the archive until you permit it. That is not mercy, she said. That is the first correct rule you have obeyed tonight. He accepted the cut without defense. The old wound beneath her sleeve burned like a coal under ash. For years it had opened inward whenever his reign required steadiness, whenever border lords challenged his command, whenever treaty envoys demanded proof that Vale blood held. She had woken with fever and said nothing because the kingdom had needed a king, and the king had chosen not to need her in public. Now, the chapel watched her roll back the black sleeve. The scar was not beautiful. It was a narrow oath mark, pale at the edges, dark at the center, shaped like a line that had been crossed and forced to remain closed. Someone whispered her name. Maelra spoke at once. A scar can be made. Isolde placed her wrist above the redress form, then let the form refuse it. The silver needle touched old skin. One drop fell. The wolf crown did not flare. It did not howl. It recorded. Moonscript moved across the consent line. Living witness present. The high priest went white. Name completing. Isolde kept her wrist steady. Read it. Darian's breath changed across the table. No one else spoke. The priest read. Burdened witness, Isolde Wren. The chapel seemed to lose its roof. Gasps rose into the black rafters. A lady covered her mouth. One of the Vale elders sat down as though his legs had stopped belonging to him. Maelra remained standing. Witness, she said softly. Not bride, not queen. Let us not confuse pain with rank. Isolde looked at her. I am not asking for your veil. Then her gaze moved to Darian. Recognition hit him fully now. Not confusion, not suspicion. Recognition, late enough to be almost cruel. He opened his mouth. "No," she said. The word stopped him before he could spend regret on the room. "You will not apologize over an open wound and call that repair. You will read." His head bowed once. "What do you choose?" The question should have been simple. It was not. Her blood could release the burden. Her refusal could keep the crown unsealed and the treaty clock burning. Her consent could repair a throne that had survived by hiding her. "I choose the archive," she said. "Not you, not the marriage, not the throne. The archive." The crown gave an iron note. The priest placed Darian's bleeding palm on one side of the clasp, only after Isolde nodded. Her wounded wrist rested on the other. The archive opened. Inside, 2 records waited. The original crown, oath, entry, and the final Sawnridge treaty rider. Moonlight touched the first page. The witness line filled completely with her name. Below it, the original vow began to unseal. The original vow began as moon script, then became a voice. Not Darian's voice as the chapel knew it now. This one was younger, roughened by smoke, grief, and a throne taken before it was ready. "If the crown asks what steadied my blood," the old vow said, "let it record Isolde Wren before every treaty, every council's seal, and every royal breath I take. Her witness holds what my reign cannot yet carry. No crown shall receive me clean, while her name is hidden." The chapel heard the name at last. No one had to look at her to know what silence had cost. Blood had dried dark around the cuts the crown had given him. Maelra spoke before grief could become law. A wartime vow of witness is not a bridal claim. It does not undo peace. "No," Isolde said. "It undoes silence." The treaty rider shifted beneath the second beam of moonlight. The priest read, with a voice gone thin. "Final rider insertion. 7-night transfer clause. Delivered under Queen Bride household seal." "That was read," Maelra said. The page answered with another line. "Council peace delegation mark. Duplicated from border restitution draft. No living countersignature entered." The Queen Bride lifted her chin. "A copied mark can be lawful when authority is delegated." "Read the delegation scope," Isolde said. The priest read, "Delegation excludes crown transfer, interim sovereignty, and burden redress." Darian turned toward Maelra. "You delivered a forged transfer into my marriage treaty." Her calm did not break, but it sharpened. "I delivered continuity to a kingdom that could not crown its own king. You designed your continuity around her wound, and you let that wound remain unnamed," she answered. The room went still, because the strike landed true. He accepted it, without defense. "Yes, one word. Public. Bara." He faced the chapel, not Isolde first. "I married under a treaty I had not read deeply enough. After denying an oath I had no right to leave unnamed. The sealed burden preserved my reign. Isolde Wren carried what the crown should have made me face." The crown gave a low, iron note. No applause followed. No easy mercy. Only record. He took the treaty knife from the altar and cut through the forged rider. Not the marriage cord, not Maelra's wrist ribbon. Only the unauthorized transfer clause. "Queen Bride household authority is suspended," he said. "The Sawnridge settlement returns to original terms under review. No peace will be held by forged sovereignty." Maelra's eyes cooled past kindness. "Then, you have chosen a witness over a queen." Isolde looked at the open vow. "He chose a hidden witness over truth years ago. Tonight he is late, not noble." "I am late," he said, "and I do not ask you to make lateness beautiful." The redress form waited, living consent still empty except for her presence. The priest's voice trembled. "The burden remains. The crown cannot complete acceptance until the witness chooses release. This time, The attention felt like a door opened from her side. She placed her wrist above the form. "I will not release it back into silence." Darian's answer came quiet. "Name the terms. The original vow stays in public crown record. No witness burden may be sealed without notice, protection, and living consent. No treaty may gain authority from an unresolved wound. And my name will never again be called past loyalty when it was the reason your reign survived." "Entered," he said, "not by you alone." The priest entered it. The elders signed it. The crown accepted each mark without flame, as if justice did not need spectacle. Only then did she press her blood to the release line. "I release the burden from my body," she said. "Not the truth from the record." Moon script crossed her scar, cool instead of burning. For the first time in years, the wound opened outward without pain. A thin silver line lifted from her skin and settled into the archive beside her name. The wolf crown turned dark moonstones toward Darian. He offered his palm again. This time, iron did not cut him. The crown received his blood, but it did not lower itself to his head. It rested on the altar between them, waiting. The priest whispered, "The crown asks whether the witness stands concealed or recognized." Darian looked at Isolde. "Recognized. Whether she stays, leaves, hates me, or one day forgives me, the crown will not hide her." Her throat tightened, despite every wall she had built. "You still do not get to call that love," she said. "No," he answered. "Only the beginning of repair." That was the first thing he said all night that did not ask her to carry him. At dawn, Maelra was escorted out as a woman whose peace had been weighed and found forged. The elders remained behind to sign the new witness law. The priest placed the archive in Isolde's hands. Darian stood on the chapel steps without the crown on his head. She stood beside him because she chose the place, not because a vow forced her there. When his hand turned palm up between them, he did not reach farther. After a long silence, she placed 2 fingers against his bandaged palm. Not forgiveness, not yet, a path. And this time, the whole kingdom saw that she was the one who chose whether to walk it.